It is Pulp Google Hacking, the next generation search engine hacking arsenal with Fran Brown and Rob Reagan.
How's it going, everybody?
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. For those of you playing the drinking game version of this talk, the pace is one shot per every time we say diggity. So again, thank you everyone for coming out. Last track of the day. I know we're looking forward to going to some parties later, and hopefully I'll see you there. I'm Rob Reagan. I'm a senior security associate at Stack & Lou. We're an IT services company that helps Fortune 500 companies predominantly secure their businesses, applications, and networks. And we don't sell any products, but we do occasionally make some pretty cool tools that we give away for free. So that's what we're going to be talking to you guys about today.
We are giving away about 50 free tools now. We might as well be a free product company. But my name's Fran Brown. I'm a managing partner at Stack & Lou. And
I'd like to thank Jason Lash, if he's here in the audience. Yeah, right up here up front. He makes all our Photoshops for our presentations. Maybe a round of applause for the tens of minutes he spent on this.
Yeah. Gave me the little widow's peak and all, man. It's, you know. Roy Howard Bing. Cool. So just to give you an idea about what we're going to cover today, people are still filling in. For those of you who weren't here last season on the days of our diggity, we'll do a quick recap of where we took things last year, and then we'll get right into the complete arsenal of new tools and techniques that we are releasing this year, and most of which went up on our website this morning. And then finally, we'll define the future. But this time, instead of future predictions, we'll actually be talking about a few of the pretty big things that we have in the works for the pretty immediate future that should be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
So getting into that, we just kind of wanted to, for those of you that are maybe brand new to this concept, just very briefly talk about what search engine hacking is and kind of introduce that concept for you. So it really comes down to open source intelligence gathering and applying passive analysis techniques or applying techniques to be able to retrieve information from publicly available sources to create actionable intelligence. And all right, but what does this really mean? I mean, for everyone in this room, it'll probably hit home that lulsec and anonymous hacking groups are believed to use Google hacking as a primary means of finding vulnerabilities. And this kind of comes from some of the recent information that was released from, such as their admin IRC logs. And regarding our references for that, I just kind of wanted to show you guys where we're getting that information from. So this is a breakdown of those admin IRC logs and other efforts to identify members of those groups. And repeatedly, it was mentioned that a lot of the breaches started with Google hacking. And I think that's something that often gets overlooked. So right here is an example of, from their logs, mentioning a Google hack string to search for Cisco VPN configuration files that typically store group names, usernames, sometimes encoded passwords, and just allowing these being publicly available in search results makes it that much easier for attackers to quickly identify one step closer to being inside of a corporate network. And so that's really what Google hacking and search engine hacking comes down to, just finding vulnerabilities or sensitive information disclosure through search engines. And this being some of the results for that exact search. So I hope that clarifies it for you. That's all the time I really want to spend on what search engine hacking is. Let's get into some of the new tools, because we have a lot to demo. And I think you guys will appreciate some of the stuff we're about to make available. And I hope you guys take it and run with it. So I'm really curious to see what the community does with these tools as it's making some of these techniques just a lot easier for us all.
So just a few quick updates on some of the core tools that we already had, specifically Search Diggity and Google Diggity. Basically, Google went ahead again since the last time we saw most of you and changed their API. Any of you who like to use our Search Diggity tool have probably noticed that after so many queries, you start getting error messages saying, you've exceeded your quota for the day. It's because they've deprecated the Google Ajax API that was the official mode, and they're phasing people out of that. So the tools that were released on our website today are the first, to my knowledge, of Google hacking tools out there that have been fully migrated to the new Google JSON Atom API, which is interesting, and we'll show a little bit of it, but there is a cost factor built into it. You get the first 100 searches for free, and then every search after that, they charge you, I think it's like $5 for 1,000 searches.
1,000 results, actually, yeah. I think it's only if it returns a result, or is it search? Okay.
It's per search. Results would be worse, I think. So basically, and it's all set up through their Google API console, and you pay for it through Google Checkout. So if any of you have a Droid-based application and you buy an app, you probably have an account with Google Checkout set up. But basically, you could scan through the entire Google hacking and Foundstone hacking database still for about $5 to $10.
And this is this is really for a legitimate way to scrape Google results. I know a lot of people in this room probably aren't interested in legitimate, but for those of you that are, this is the way to do it. We'll be showing a lot more illegitimate ways to gather results from Google. But if you want to take the route, if you're like a security engineer responsible for the Google hacking at your company, then this would be the route you may want to take for spot checking things.
Yeah, another route for the non-official route that we'll be building into this, it's not in the release on the website today, but will be soon, but the ability to specify multiple API keys. So if you have a user at Gmail account, you can create a user 1, user 2, user 3, and just spread the 100 free queries across multiple accounts, which is violating their terms of services probably, but is another way to go.
Another feature that's built into the new release is the ability to download all results to a local cache. And we had some users request this. We were actually, I got an email this morning for someone requesting this, and I was like, well, you're in luck, because later today the version will be on the site that does that. Basically, they wanted to be able to do offline analysis rather than having to keep hitting Google to go through the content that they retrieved from their site. And that kind of drives some of our other tools, but we'll get to more of that later.
And one important thing to note here is that whereas before doing a custom search engine and custom search ID was kind of an added benefit, now the newer API actually requires you to go through a custom search engine. So we were already set up for that, which is pretty convenient.
And for those of you that don't know, that narrows you down to just the results that you're interested in seeing. So let's say you only care about results on your company's domain, or if you're a penetration tester, if you only want to target the sites that are in scope for the engagement, you can make a custom search engine that basically uses wildcards to say, I want star.targetsite.com, and it will filter results just down to that. So
we see the updated Search Diggity interface here with the updated Google Diggity, as well as you see a number of new tabs up there that were not there yesterday, of a whole arsenal of tools that we've been working on pretty much around the clock, especially the last month or so. I haven't left the office. I've just kind of set up a little cot there. But we got most of them out today, which I'm pretty proud of. One thing that we mentioned is that in addition to some of the features, it requires you now to have a Google custom search engine. For those of you who weren't at our talk last year where we kind of explained what that was, you go create your own Google custom search engine. It's a service. You specify one or more kind of filters, and then when you search, it gives you full Google results, but filtered based on the filters that you specified. Now that was convenient in some ways before, but in others you may want to just search all of Google for certain vulnerabilities. So one of the ways that we came up to get around this new requirement is by coming up with a handful of Google custom search engines that we'll be releasing the configuration files for them so you can create your own. but one that we use quite heavily is the all top-level domains custom search engine. So basically all we did was went and took a list of all the top-level domains like .com and .org and .edu and all the ones that they have, which you can reach at that link there, and did star dot slash star. So basically we've created a Google custom search engine that gives you all of the results of Google.
Kind of bypassing their design of filtering you down just to a few domains.
Yeah, so we use this one quite heavily. We'll release the configuration for this so you can search all of Google to your heart's content, as well as a few other pretty cool ones, such as filtering just on government websites or filters that specifically remove a lot of false positives.
Yeah, for any of those that have done a lot of Google hacking, you probably notice a lot of forums that come back in the results, or maybe sites just hosting Google hacking queries, or support sites and things along those lines. And yeah, basically this will prevent those from being returned in your results.
One other thing that we've put in, it's still the same dictionary for the most part right now, but we've built in the ability to do auto updates on the dictionaries, the Google Dork dictionaries and the Bing Dork dictionaries that these are using. We have a bunch that we're getting ready to release, and now all you have to do is basically click auto update. One of them that's not in there yet is the SharePoint Google Dictionary file, which is new since last BlackHat, which is a whole dictionary of Google searches that come back with SharePoint administrative pages and administrative web services, things of that nature.
And we'll be updating these as we do more penetration testing and kind of learning from our findings, large, widely used software bases that can easily be utilized to craft Google searches to find new vulnerabilities. I believe with these results you found a SharePoint site that was publicly exposed that had, what was the site? I think everyone in this room might know it. The certification.
Oh yes.
ISACA.
Yeah. So basically, how many of you are ISACA members? Have a CISA or CISM or something?
CISSP like through ISACA.
Nobody.
All right.
None of you guys are certified. Basically,
And
ISACA is a security organization. They probably have a booth outside who are running SharePoint that was exposing a number of administrative interfaces that we caught with our Google Dictionary. Happened to find it. I wasn't even searching for ISACA. It happened to come up on the first page of results while I was testing out our new Google Dictionaries for SharePoint, coincidentally. They fixed it within a matter of minutes, which is pretty good, so you guys are all safe.
They exposed personal information, email addresses, phone numbers of every person that's got a security certification through their website.
Yeah,
So
basically is the largest repository that was exposed of security professionals and
right,
security
for social
executives
engineering
at
and
every
targeted
major
attacks.
organization, I could say. But, oops. Another, besides the SharePoint dictionary, which we'll be releasing, which it's already actually on the website that you could download, but for automatic update. But another few interesting ones, besides adding SharePoint dictionaries and technology-specific dictionaries that you guys will be able to auto-update and download to the new tools, we've also been working on a number of updates to old Google Dorks, basically. So somebody with a pretty old Google Dork happened to find the 300,000 user base emails and passwords for Groupon a while back, just searching for file type SQL, Hotmail, Gmail, password. And they found a SQL file with 300,000 of Groupon's users in India with their plain text passwords and usernames and email addresses. So that was a pretty interesting one, so I put it in myself. And then I noticed that there are plenty of results. That one was more interesting than others. Most of them tend to be false positives. There's a lot of false positives, templates that are out there, not actual real data. So we've been playing around with some different ideas of analysis of actual live dumps. Thanks to LulzSec and organizations like that, we have plenty of test data to work off of.
Yeah, and one thing some of our clients have been interested in is any of our user accounts in those dumps. And so kind of as a service to quickly be able to notify them, oh, your account on this site that was, database was leaked and your plain text password is now in the wild. If you are reusing that anywhere, better shore it up right quick.
Yeah, so one of the ones that we came up with that we noticed was if we started modifying these a little bit, such as the one that found the Groupon item, and just looking for things like Gmail, Hotmail password, and looking across Pastebin, by adding certain common elements that you will find in real data breaches, actual real information that's been dumped, as opposed to others, is a handful of random words, such as in-text Boulevard, as we see here, or in-text 75th, because a large enough dump of real personal information, whether it be in Pastebin or some other form, tends to have somebody who has a street address that's Boulevard, or somebody lives on 75th Street.
Yeah, or if you search for like a name that's less common, or like Diane on First Street, and you end up getting very accurate results.
So one of my favorite results here is we see file type CSV, XLS, TXT, and SQL, and we're looking again for Gmail, Hotmail, and password. But this time we've added in-text Boulevard and in-text 75th for 75th Street and in-text Diane. Diane is a common enough name that it comes up in real data breaches, but not common enough where people use it as an example name in example data. So just filtering on that, we're able to find a number of, we can see some of the results up here. You start to see real people with Boulevard Street, Gmail, password. One of my favorite is this.
Asswatcher.com? You would like that.
Yeah, you know it. So what we're seeing here is, so there's Diane, actually Diane Street in this case, not a name. But this is actually giving us much better results than just searching for Hotmail, Gmail, password, which you just get information overload of data breaches that aren't real.
And this looks like information collected during payment processing on a porn site that the attacker just wrote out to the logs directory and is now living there and got indexed by Google.
Yeah.
Up at cox.net.
What happens? The misadventures of a high school dropout, a pocket full of cash, and my first camera. It sounds like Vegas. But another one that's a little, so all those people who just wanted to innocently sign up for AssWatcher now have all their personal information exposed.
It's not that innocent.
And don't judge me. So now we were able to get to file dumps. That's actually on their site still. That before would just be buried within millions of results that we might never get to by modifying some of these queries. And the auto update feature I mentioned will start having similar to the old Google Dorks, but modified just enough to get better results for what you're looking for. Another interesting one that made the news, is it last week or the week before? Did you guys hear about this governmentsecuritybags.com? I believe this was released by one of the members of Anonymous July 24th, so a little over a week ago. Basically, if you go to governmentsecuritybags.com,
this one?
This is great. This is a website that sells bags with locks on them that you can use to carry around top secret and classified data. So
sole purpose.
If you are a person who carries around top secret documents and you need specific bags to carry these things around, this is one place that you can go.
Or if you want a pink one with flowers on it, like they have that. But
yes, top secret with style. So basically, looking at Pastebin, and this has been removed now, I believe. Yes. So while they were good enough to remove it, thank you, Google, for
caching it.
Caching a complete list of, and this is one that had made the news last week, but I didn't even notice it until one of our searches with Boulevard and 75th, which are both in here. As you can see, highlighted Boulevard came up. But basically, we're looking at the actual personal information, the billing addresses, the username and passwords that they registered with,
all the .gov and .mil addresses?
They're all they're everyone who carries around top secret documents. So if you wanted a one-stop shop for the email address, password, the home billing address, their name, everything you want to know.
And the picture of the bag that you're looking for.
The picture of the bag, you know what to look for. They got a picture of one of those nice bags with top secret written on it. So if one wanted to, for national security purposes, identify a list of people to go after, here's 600 or some odd, well, probably half that with the stars, of people that you can go after who with top secret document bags walking around. Which is just a great example, I think. So again, just searching for things, normally I would not have found that, but by the actual one that found it was similar to before, but this time just looking for Boulevard and 75th, and we'll be releasing a number of these that'll make it easier to find and sort through all the information on Google for actual password and email and personal information data dumps, which are becoming quite regular.
Does anyone follow the Pastebin Leaks Twitter feed? A few people. I'd be curious to know if they're using these similar techniques. So if anyone knows the person that runs that, would be curious to discuss better ways to find things like that. So let's talk about one of our brand new tools. This is something that we alluded to in last year's talk about the power and capabilities of Google Code Search. And I think everyone, or maybe some people have seen this before, where basically what Google Code Search is a search engine that indexes all publicly available source code repositories, like things from SourceForge. They now support GitHub, Google's own SVN repository, Microsoft's Codeplex. Probably billions of lines of code, all indexed and easily searchable with regular expressions, which we love.
So not just standard Google type searching, but you actually full on post regular expressions that you can quickly sort through all of these open source projects in every major repository of open source code. And people have alluded to this before and maybe had some blog posts and things like that, but we actually took the trouble to go ahead and implement a full tool with 100 or so actual regular expressions that effectively is converted Google Code Search into something of a static analysis tool that we could use to quickly cut through. And you want to do this one?
Yeah, sure. For any of you penetration testers out there, or people that do code review, it's actually a great collection all in one place of regular expressions to find potential issues in code. And here we're seeing the results for remote file includes in PHP files across all of those source code repositories that I mentioned. Also something that we know that is actively being exploited on a regular basis to take control of systems. And this one is really interesting. As part of a penetration test that I was involved with, our team basically had a target of 1,000 sites that were all hosted in Amazon's cloud. And after getting through a SQL injection and an auth bypass and then a arbitrary file upload and getting code execution, we're able to get a shell on there and start looking through the code and found in the code plain text AWS Amazon cloud keys. How many people have gone to a talk today or planning on going to one tomorrow about cloud security? No one? Maybe a few people? If they don't mention this, I mean, I don't claim to be a cloud security expert, but if they don't mention the criticality of securely storing the AWS keys, then they are missing something huge. Like, this is basically the keys to the castle of an Amazon EC2 instance. This regular expression narrowed down to get very accurate results. You can do some more generic ones to find potentially more results, but also get false positives. Will find Amazon EC2 keys that are hard-coded into open source projects. So if we go to the next slide, this is what's at stake here. Like, basically, the keys will give you full control over the EC2 instance to bring up servers and take down servers, launch new servers, or the S3 storage, which is clearly where people are putting personal information. This is actually the single most consolidated collection of personal information I've ever seen. It's a bankstatement.docx, complete access bankstatement.pdf. I was wondering if this was a honey token when I first saw this, but things like passport_driver's license, Medicare payslip.pdf, who puts all that in one PDF and then leaves it out and puts it up in their cloud.
And if you guys are looking for this guy made no money, so it was not worth really going to put on his data. Underpaid developer.
But yeah, this is the type of things that are at stake here and that could quickly be identified using Google code search regular expressions.
You want to do the Amazon one? You want to show?
Oh yeah, let's bring it up and show the application in action. So it works. All of our new tools work very similar to our old tools. It's all based on the same UI. We realized we wanted the same functionality in there for all of them. We wanted the support to be able to search multiple domains, to be able to load in just plain text files that have query definitions, or in this case, regular expressions. And we wanted to have the ability to export the results out to Excel. Like we didn't want to recreate the wheel in helping you analyze results. You can export it out to whatever your favorite spreadsheet software is and do number crunching and further analysis from there. Actually, change that to EC2, or this will get more results. So here it's kicking off a scan. You do need an API key for Google Code Search as well. All this stuff you can sign up for with free accounts. And we actually, on most of our tabs, have links to go create that account. So just download the tool, and that'll tell you where to go to create the API keys. And so here we're seeing 101 results come back for Amazon, and seeing the actually have the URL where you can click and go to launch the web browser. Can I pull it up?
Do you remember which one this was?
Just pull up anyone. I mean, some of these might be false positives. But we'll continue to build out this tool, and I'd like to get feedback. Like while beta testing this to a few people, I realized that like it'd be really good to get that whole source code that was found and pull that out in the export results. So we'll plan on adding things like that to help make the automation process of testing things like this faster.
I'm going to drop this one.
Yeah, sure. We also see here that you can actually go in and select a result, and it takes out the snippet, the lines before and lines after of what it matched on. So that's just basically, I think we changed this to EC2. You guys get the idea. We have a lot of other stuff to show, so I'd encourage you to play with this. It's really, I think, the first tool that allows you to rapidly analyze lots of results, and also comes with pre-packaged regular expressions. If you're not really a strong coder or not familiar with software development, we put a lot in there that'll help you rapidly identify things like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, any other hard-coded or sensitive data. And I'd encourage you to explore and make your own searches. And give back to the community. I'd kind of like to get more built around this. I think there's a lot of people out there that create Google search engine searches, but not a lot of people sharing things like regular expressions to find sensitive data in code.
I think this is it, man, if you want to show it.
I was at the exact search. So we'll continue to keep updating that and pushing out new searches. And expect many enhancements to the tool over the next few weeks, and just keep visiting our site. That's where we'll be pushing it all out of.
It's the EC2 one. Was it in the
That's missing some things, missing the part of the expression. That's fine. Let's just move on. I think everyone gets the idea.
So the next tool that we have to look at here is Bing link from domain. How many of you are familiar with Bing's link from domain directive that you could use? Raise your hand. Anybody?
It's like 2 or 3 people.
Like 2 or 3 people. Basically, in Bing, if you put link from domain : and your domain or your website, it gives you all of the off-site links for your site, which from a footprinting perspective, how we could harness this data is quite interesting. So we've created an extra tab within Search Diggity that's going to allow us to automate this process from a footprinting perspective of an organization or even a government, as it might be in this case. So let's say, for instance, that we wanted to profile the Chinese government for attack. How many people here are from government intelligence? NSA, I heard you guys were recruiting. Stand up, identify yourself.
Nice try.
So if one were interested or so inclined to profile websites, particularly for the Chinese government or some other large organization, this would be a pretty useful tool for you. So maybe you know where to start. Maybe you know that, okay, we'll start with www.gov.cn for China's main website. How many people here are from China? Chinese government intelligence.
So I'd wave that one off. Just China.
Yeah, you got to go back and tell them about this thing. So this is going to go ahead and take what Bing has for every offsite link for China's main government website. And I'm also going to append a few things here. So I'll say gov.cn. So any link off of China's main government website that also itself is part of the gov.cn domain. And it's going to give us some results that Bing would have. So not only is the link from domain tool within Search Diggity going to automate this process of doing this and give us these Bing results. So if you went to Bing and you typed in link from domain www.gov.cn as well as space site gov.cn,
right there in the
these are the results. Yeah, right there in the output. If you type this into Bing, this is what you would get. And these are the exact results. We've also went ahead and sorted this data for you to individual applications, also individual host names, as well as other subdomains. So now we've effectively built out a list of, besides www.gov.cn, we now have a huge list of host names for other Chinese government servers, as well as subdomains of the gov.cn domain. And pretty quickly, just using Bing link from domain, we could build out a full profile of a target organization of a large scale.
A great tool for those pen testers in the room that are doing passive analysis and maybe delivering a list of sites and domains that they've identified before the engagement starts, kind of like a what can you discover, and then I'll tell you what's in scope.
How many of you do this kind of on your own, just by searching and then grepping of some kind? And yeah, a handful of people. So this,
kind of
I got tired of doing that, and this is kind of the motivation behind why we did that. And not only that, and one of the features I forgot to mention was that we can also now, besides exporting to a, let's say CN. This thing is killing me with this. One of the new features of the Search Diggity, besides auto updates, new tabs with new tools.
Export to plain text in HTML and...
Yeah, so we now can export to Excel spreadsheet, which has it nice and neat for us already with each tab of, these are the URLs that we found and applications and host names and subdomains. And
you might want to take this list and feed it into your other tools that you use for passive analysis. Maybe you want to run these through Maltego, or you want to run it through whatever your other favorite tools are. Here's that list for you.
Quite a few subdomains for gov.cn. Never actually looked through this list all the way. But cool, so I think you get the point for that. So Bing link from domain is another interesting attack footprinting tool leveraging. And this is, again, and we highlighted this a lot last year, in that one of the types of features that Bing actually has that Google doesn't. So Google doesn't allow you to easily access a list of all off-site links for a particular target domain or actual site, whereas we have an extra thing here. One other interesting thing that we mentioned last year, I almost forgot about this, just made me remember it, is that another feature that Bing has, we talked about this a little bit last year, that Google doesn't, is the IP colon directive, which allows you to do, instead of searching by name, actually do reverse host name lookups, or what it has for virtual addresses, and you can actually search by IP address. During a penetration test earlier this year, we gave this sort of as like a fake example last year, but during an actual penetration test, I did IP. I was just given a list of 3 C classes, and just plugged it in there, and it did IP colon for each IP address, and found, I'm looking through the results, and most of them look what they should be. And then I saw a high school reunion website we were not testing high school reunion companies. I did a little digging looking at it, and apparently the CEO of the company was hosting on company infrastructure his high school reunion website, which was SQL injectable. And we used to actually eventually completely compromise and get into their internal network. And this was the initial door. And had I not had Bing Diggity and the specific IP address feature that Bing has that Google doesn't, I would have never found that site and would never have known about it being listed on that infrastructure.
Yeah, so these are new automated...
Sounds like a made-up example, right? Not
No.
absolutely real.
He just wanted to show off and say that he's CEO now at his high school reunion, so he hosted the site on his corporate servers to prove it. But yeah, these are just automated tools to help you with your methodology for a lot of the passive analysis that you may be doing. And another brand new tool that we're introducing, and we kind of alluded to that this was possible last year, but we actually implemented it now, is malware diggity. Basically, a functionality to automate the process of checking URLs against the Google Safe Browsing API. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Google Safe Browsing API, that's used to, it's kind of a big conglomeration of companies like PayPal, eBay, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo. They all kind of got together and said, all right, we want to protect the consumer. We want to make sure that we're blacklisting sites that are known to distribute malware. You guys have probably seen when you're browsing the web, you go to a site that says, maybe if you're using Chrome or Firefox, it automatically warns you and said, caution, something's wrong with this site. Proceed at your own risk. We think it's hosting malware. Well, that's actually your browser, if you watched it in a proxy, making a request out to the Safe Browsing API for every domain that you request to see if it is indeed blacklisted. So we thought we could actually utilize that in some of our own research and some of our own efforts to compare a lot of the domains that our clients link to. And some of our larger clients that have like 800 domains that they're responsible for that are all very large websites have no way of really monitoring if they become blacklisted. And that's a huge problem. It puts your page rank to 0. Obviously, no one's going to want to buy anything from your site if it's warning saying that this is malware as soon as they try to hit the home page. So and also, go ahead.
So just to discuss a little bit of the relevance for those of you who weren't here last year or saw the talk and kind of how it's progressed since then. We noticed last year, and we spoke a little bit to the Wall Street Journal incident, where the Wall Street Journal and the Jerusalem Post were one of several 100,000 websites that were mass SQL injected. And all they did was append to each page an external link to some externally hosted malware. So if you woke up that morning, went to your computer, went to check the news, pulled up the Wall Street Journal, it opened up, your browser got popped, and your end workstation was compromised. So think of that Wall Street Journal and a few 100,000 extending out to everyone who visited those websites, taking control of their systems. We're talking, I don't even know how many. Since then, this past April, how many of you are familiar with the Liza Moon mass SQL injection? Just one person. So it went from a couple 100,000, which for the Wall Street Journal incident, which nobody last year had heard of either, apparently, to this past April, we saw a viral scare where a fast-spreading SQL injection attack that injected compromising millions of websites. I saw on the news yesterday, also relevant, is that this one? Yeah, this was yesterday, right? In the middle of the night, I was checking my email. And we saw with this new mass distributed iframe injection thing going on with 5 million pages compromised. What we're seeing is that people are injecting legitimate websites and linking off to malicious software so that you go to a normal website, you go to the Wall Street Journal or any one of these millions of websites that are being compromised in this mass way, and your browser gets popped with some ODay flash vulnerability or something along those lines. And now these people are targeting using the biggest websites on the internet as a platform to distribute their malware to all of their end users.
Yeah, you see it went from 91,000 web pages in 1 week to 5 million. That's quite the drastic jump. And we're not really malware researchers or claim to be experts in malware analysis or anything along those lines, but we thought that we might be able to utilize Google and Bing's search capabilities to investigate these issues. And so that's what we did.
So this is one of my favorite kind of situations where we use both Google and Bing together. We kind of did it with the Bing hacking alerts and Google Reader, which we're still doing. But this is, like I said, like Google and Bing, hug it out, bitch. So what we're doing here, we're taking the technology of link from domain that we just saw illustrated, so we're using Bing to find all the off-site links for target websites or domains. In this case, you might want to look at your own company, or we may want to find all the off-site links for the top 100 most visited websites on the internet, which is exactly what we did.
We went out and downloaded from the Alexa site. You can download the top 1 million popular, most visited sites, and so we just took the first 100 of that list and loaded it into link from domain.
Yep. So now that gives us all the off-site links. Now we're feeding all of those off-site links from Bing link from domain to Google Safe Browsing API to tell us if any of those links have been flagged as malware or malware distribution sites. In essence, filtering and letting us know if I plugged in my domains or the top 100 domains on the internet, the end result is a list of off-site links from the biggest websites on the internet that are malware or have been flagged as malware. So are you being used to distribute malware? Are you linking off to a malware site?
Yeah, I know for this sample, like that's actually with that import button in the top right, imported that list just for the sample, for the example, loaded in over 40,000 URLs to that list in the top right, and then ran those all up against malware diggity. And actually, Safe Browsing API is a really great feature where you can do a post request and send 500 domains at a time. So it crunched through over 40,000 results in about 1 minute and 20 seconds. And here's what we got back. We saw immediately that these sites were blacklisted, known to host malware. So, and we also there linked to the diagnostic page. Do you have the diagnostic image pulled up for any of those? Or?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is actually the sf.tastier.com actually classified it as part of the safe browsing database as part of the Liza Moon attack. And so we immediately know that it's involved with that.
So again, we don't want. Do you want to show the IMDb one or something like that? Or?
Yeah. So if you go to, do you have those put up?
I don't have a side demo. How are we doing on time?
Do you have the?
The things you sent me. Yeah, I do actually.
Anyway, so what we did from there was we basically loaded those sites into Google Diggity again and did a search of link and then the domain name of all the top 100 sites and the site that was classified as malware. And we started seeing pages come back from like IMDb was one example. And that linked to one of the malware sites was sexybikinis.com. And basically, we traced it through the ad providers, which I think a lot of us already know. Those sites don't actually get breached that often. It's usually the ad providers that are causing these mass malware infections. We were actually able to trace to the exact page that was most common to bring up that ad. It was an IMDb synopsis for The Amazing Race, like season 3, episode 13 or something like that. And in that episode, they went to Brazil and Florida and sold bikinis. So the logical ad to show next to that was this Sell Bikini Sites, which was being powered by that OS Commerce software that we saw in the link yesterday. That's now 5 million sites that are powered by OS Commerce are infected with malware, and hence was infecting any of the users that didn't have protection mechanisms in place when they visited that IMDb entry, which I'm sure is hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. So end result to kind of sort all that data is msnbc.msn.com was a popular website we wanted to check. We ran link from domain against MSNBC. It gave us a bunch of external links. We compared those external links using the Google Safe Browsing API, and it came up with results where MSNBC was linking its users off to malware. So if you went and checked out NBC, you went and read this article, actually in the advertising that it was using, your browser got popped just by browsing MSNBC.
Yeah, basically
we found things on IMDb, The Greatest Race last episode. These are all top visited websites on the internet that if you go to, we're linking off in some way, either through advertisements or direct links of their own that were injected or otherwise to malware distribution sites that would pop your browser and take over your end system.
Yeah, this one in particular was the ChinaWebRadar.com. The person that runs that site was actually being quoted in this article about Google leaving China after them being targeted in attacks. And then, of course, his ad for his site would be referenced next to this article, which is a known malware site. So he was generating his own publicity to spread his own malware.
Yeah, which is genius when you think about it. One other thing I wanted to touch on thinking about that was different ways that people are creatively doing this. Is the Google Alerts, which I guess we didn't get into alert stuff, but most of you have known from our talk last year, one of the biggest things that we released besides these tools were tools that were based on Google Alerts. And how many of you are familiar with Google Alerts in general?
Yeah, everyone uses that.
Everyone at this point?
Do you search your own name?
What's your first Google alert? Anything else?
Your name?
Your own name. Your own name.
Yeah.
How many people here, raise your hand, who know about Google Alerts? Put in your own name. Most people. Google Vanity Alerts, right? Well, there's
Narcissist.
been... Me too, I did it
I do it too.
It's okay. But people have realized that people are starting to do this, and that's a pretty common thing, especially for high-ranking profile executives who want to keep tabs on what's being said about them in the news, creating Google Alerts with their own name that is sending content to them of anything on the internet matches their name. These have been targeted spear phishing attacks or even malware attacks where people are creating malicious sites that will be flagged by Google Alerts for your name for CEOs of the top Fortune 500.
Yeah, for those of you that specialize in social engineering, this is another tool in the box to be able to utilize search engine optimization to get that result to the top for whoever you're specifically targeting.
Directly to high-profile executives who are Googling for their own name, have it land in their inbox, they click on it, and they get popped, and now you specifically have access to the CEO of Google, for instance. Something along those lines. Another interesting way of utilizing some of these tools.
So we saved the last two tools, which personally some of my favorites for last. DLP Diggity. Basically, the design of this is to have something to analyze all of the different document types that you can retrieve from these search engines. You may be familiar with like the OpenDLP project, which I think is a great open source way to run regular expressions through and crunch a large amount of data to find sensitive information. And so we wanted to provide something like that in our tool to combine that step of searching for results, downloading them to your local offline cache, and then running greps through them all in the same tool.
So basically, there's a ridiculous amount of information out there compared to where it was a few years ago from different numbers that I've seen. I mean, we're looking at over 500 million PDFs on the internet that have been indexed and searchable by Google, 84 million Word docs, and so on and so forth. And we can use Bing as well, who have 26 million Word docs and 146 million PDFs that you could search for. Systematically searching, downloading, and extracting and mining data out of all of these is our goal, is what we set out to do with DLP Diggity. So looking for out of PDFs, Word docs, Excel spreadsheets, CSVs, things of that nature, extracting email addresses, passwords, social security numbers.
You may want to create a search that just looks for passport, Medicare, paycheck, and all in the same PDF, and you might get some results. So again, this uses the same interface. The idea being that you can plug in regular expressions. We also ship with a lot of preloaded expressions. So here we're actually just demonstrating downloading some of those pastebin leaks that we demonstrated earlier in the talk, and just quickly grepping for all the email addresses out of them. And you get a nice little selected results view to be able to process that information and export that information out. We're not going to recreate the wheel and be better than egrep or whatever, or powergrep or whatever you prefer to use, but at least you now can export that information out. And also, by the way, here's some regular expressions you may want to use on it. And you may want to target this on your specific domains for first pulling down all the Word documents, PDF files, and things that are exposed on your domain. I know that I saw a derivative of our talks that someone did at a university. They basically, maybe they were at at BlackHat last year, and they went and I found the presentation with a Google search where they were using it to pull off student personal information, like student social security numbers from their university site, because they were indexed, and they can utilize this to quickly grep through all of those results and find those much more quickly.
So we have hundreds of checks built in, regular expressions for everything from social security numbers to personal information to banking accounts, things of that nature. What we see here is a scan directory. So we've built in the feature, as you saw earlier, to Google Diggity and Bing Diggity searches to go ahead and maybe just search for file type, doc, and cite your domain, and click the download button, and it by default downloads those to see Diggity downloads. So we can utilize both Google and Bing to systematically search and pull down all these files, whether they're PDFs or Word docs, you name it.
Yeah, also feel free to use this tool as a penetration tester if you're already inside an internal network. Maybe you're doing an internal network assessment and you find a network share, or you find a box that you get access to and you want to quickly grep through all of the documents they store on their internal network. That's probably where most of the juicy information lives if it's not on Google. So now you have a way to quickly do that.
And do we have a pre-can example?
One thing I find interesting, if you go to the simple search and just search for http:// getting all of the URLs, you may find other hidden URLs or internal web applications that can be the next stage of a target, or you can basically search for email addresses or passwords, and all easily available to use right there.
And for the sake of time, we'll go through and go to a similar technology.
Yeah, the next step of that was we thought, what other file types can we utilize this on? And so the idea being that we want to take it to the next level with client-side attacks and being able to rapidly identify vulnerabilities and information, sensitive information stored in Flash or in Silverlight or in Java applets. We all know it happens, but I didn't have any quick way to be able to mine that information from a lot of sites. As I mentioned, one of the use cases that was driving a lot of these features was a penetration test I was on that was literally 1,000 sites were in scope. So rapidly covering that and using my time most effectively needed something that would be able to say, load all those domains that I want to target, download all file type.swift, and start finding me sensitive information in them. So if we go to the next slide, it's not up on the projector. Pulling this information out and being able I started searching for things like upload. And that's actually what I wanted to show. Quickly, what came out of those results was a lot of porn sites that had upload Swift files that then underneath there was a call to a PHP file that was not indexed by Google because Google didn't actually go through and decompile the Swift like Swift Diggity can do and mine out all the URLs. So it was a hidden URL that we wouldn't have found with Google search results, probably wouldn't have found with a crawler unless the crawler supports Flash decompilation. And then that upload page had no input validation on it. It basically, you could upload a GNY shell or whatever your favorite PHP shell is to that box and access it in the same path that all the porn videos were going to. So that was the idea of this. And we want to continue to expand this, integrate, as I mentioned, Silverlight, the ability to decompile Silverlight applications and Java applets. But right now, it supports the ability to decompile Flash. And I think you can find a lot of interesting information with this. Some of the other more common things that we find are encryption keys stored in Flash or an algorithm to perform some sensitive operation. Like almost every Flash game that's out there has the ability to submit a high score. And those are all very easily gamed typically by finding the request type that it wants you to submit. Maybe there's an MD5 hash and a timestamp that needs to be applied and a few other things, and you can quickly decompile the Flash file to find that information. But this now on a larger scale, I'm targeting many sites at once. Do you pull that up? I'll drive if you just want to move it over instead of switching to the other extended thing.
Okay. Just do Shift F5.
Again, so just finding sensitive links.
So how many of you are familiar with SwiftScan or tools of that nature? A couple people who helped write it.
Yeah, we actually got feedback from one of the primary developers of that, Projecta. She's here.
So basically, while we weren't looking to duplicate our that type of tool exactly, the one added feature was being able to just search across your domain for file type Swift, systematically download, decompile, and find common vulnerabilities within Flash modules for your website or your domain. And we've taken that whole process and have automated it for you.
Of course, a demo would. We were doing so well with all our demos, but inevitable happened. Anyway, we'll move right along then. I think everyone gets the idea.
So I think that was the last of the...
So yeah, that's the last of the tools in our thick client that you can download and use. And these are all more from the, do you want to turn it back? These are all more from the attack perspective. But we wanted to arm everyone with the same, why can't we, like, our goal is kind of like, why can't we have better capabilities than Anonymous and Lulzsec are using? I'm sure they're automating this as well, writing scripts and things like that. But to give a tool that an InfoSec engineer could easily download and use, or a penetration tester could easily download and use to find more of these issues more quickly. Because obviously we know the big difference between penetration testers and some of the hacking groups out there is we typically have a time limit or hour limit on how long we're paying attention to this stuff. So we just wanted to be able to do more.
There actually was one more attack tool, which I won't go into a demo because I'm having some demo problems here. But basically, how many of you are familiar with Baidu?
Most popular search engine in China. Does anyone have stock in that? That stuff went way up real quick.
Basically, it's exactly Google, but just called Baidu. And I mean, the same directives, parameters, everything worked for it. So we went ahead and can use Baidu. If you wanted to utilize the search engine, again, for you government intelligence people in the audience, identify yourself, that was the largest search engine used by people in China, as well as indexer of Chinese websites. You could, and you might recognize some of these directives, like the site colon, things of that nature.
Basically completely ripped off.
But we took the ability basically to take all of these Google dorks, the Google hacking database, the Foundstone hacking database, our own, and use them to enumerate information out of Baidu. So again, with the approach of extending from Google to Bing to Baidu and onward of other open source, not open source, but open search engines available to us.
So moving into some of the advanced defense techniques, last year we released the Google hacking alerts. For those of you not familiar, we loaded all of the Google hacking database queries, all the Foundstone hacking database queries, and we even loaded about 1,500 of our own queries into Google Alerts. Had to spread that across multiple accounts because they only allow 1,000 per account. But and then we basically created an RSS feed that would be updated in real time of all of the matches. So we've learned a lot in the last year about that. We've identified the ones that generate the most false positives and removed those or made them better. And we've kind of, the feedback that we kept getting was that, you know, that by itself is nice, but I don't care about the 3,000 new entries that it indexes a day. I only want to see the stuff that's on the domains I'm responsible for securing, or the ones that I personally own and run, or the ones that I may be targeting as a penetration tester. So we made that for you.
Yeah. So this is probably, as we've said before, it's been collecting these things for about a year now, a little over a year, and it's probably, raise your hand if you know a bigger one, the world's largest repository of live vulnerabilities on the internet, where each RSS hit that comes in correlates directly to some vulnerability on somebody's website on the internet.
Even if half of those were false positives, it'd still be
getting about 3,000 a day pretty consistently. One of the new things that we did, it started to get a little unmanageable, basically. After a while, we have thousands, several thousands of RSS feeds pulling data from both Google and Bing, as well as some other sources now, and trying to manage that, especially on mobile devices and things of that nature, has gotten a little unruly. And then we came across what I like to call the Fundle Bundle, is the new method by which we're going. So how many of you are familiar with, how many people here use Google Reader in general?
I love Google Reader. Yeah, it's great.
How many of you are familiar with the Fundle Bundles? It's just bundle, but I say Fundle Bundle. Not many, right? It's one of those buried features in the search for more kind of things. But basically, we were able to take all of the Google hacking alerts, as well as all of the Bing hacking alerts, these several thousand RSS feeds, which are just generating an enormous amount of data of live vulnerabilities on the internet, and filtered them down to just one single feed that is streaming to you via this Diggity Hacking Alerts Fundle Bundle.
Links to this on the website, by the way, so you can reference this.
Yeah, and as we see here, if you were to import this one feed, you see right in the titles, the Bing entitled Powered By. You now only have one feed that you have to check, and for us, from a programming perspective, that we have to pull data from, that we are constantly updating. So another beautiful thing about this is that you don't have to come and check, are there more RSS feeds on our website?
Which is how we were doing it over the last year.
Releasing one XML file after another. Now, as we add new feeds into this, you will just start realizing the content through this single feed, which has been great for us. It even comes with some nice interfaces from mobile-friendly interfaces for generic mobile as well as the iPhone, which are pretty cool. Let me skip over that. So what this has allowed us to do, one note about what these are before I move on to it is, Bing, you may have noticed, has stopped generating RSS results, and that was because the method that we used last year of appending end format equals RSS to generate feeds stopped working about a month ago, which...
Yeah. So we're trying to stay ahead of this, and as they make changes to their APIs and the ways they expose this information, update our tools to keep this information consistent. And so we found another one. They took that one away, and we found another way to get Bing results in RSS. And so there's that example of finding Cisco VPN configurations with Bing coming out as an RSS stream.
So once you subscribe to the Fundle Bundle now, which most of the tools do, you won't even have to worry about that, because as Bing stops updating RSS feeds, we found a new method to pull out Bing RSS results, which are being fed now into it as well. So we both have the Bing hacking alerts have been completely ported.
And so that's just the result entry of the IP address that that configuration file connects to.
Now, what I want to get into is another beautiful thing about this Fundle Bundle is that it's allowed us to take varying different types of RSS feeds, whether Atom or RSS, and start importing and make it easier to sort through just one type. And that's allowed us to, how many people are familiar with the search, the hacker search engine Shodan?
Yeah, it goes out and indexes headers, basically the IP or port scans of the internet.
Well, basically, Shodan was nice enough to open up an RSS interface to their results for us that we have now tapped into and have pulled into the Diggity hacking alerts. So now you could subscribe to and even sort on Shodan's search results as well.
Yeah, it really was amazing. Like I thought it'd be awesome if we could get Shodan feeds in RSS. And imagine like if you're responsible for securing your organization, you could plug in your IP address ranges or your host names all into Shodan and generate searches from that funnel through this same vulnerability feed. I sent the developer at Shodan a message on Twitter, and 7 hours later he implemented the RSS features. And so that was amazing. That turned around that quickly. So thank you for doing that. I think
Are you here? Anyone from Shodan? No?
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. So now we have all the results from there that we
people
want.
who aren't familiar, you want to tell them what Shodan's about?
Yeah, Shodan basically goes out and port scans the internet, and it specific ports. It captures the headers that come back. So it maybe makes an HTTP request or a telnet request, and then records those headers that come back from that IP address and indexes those and makes them searchable. So that at that point, you can start searching for headers like IIS-4 and know all of the Microsoft IIS-4 servers that are still live and available on the internet that have a plethora of known vulnerabilities. And you can do other really nice features like narrow that down to country and things along those lines, or put in ranges and see like just the IP addresses that your organization uses.
Some of the more interesting ones as well is looking for, there's some pretty cool searches in Shodan for looking for SCADA and web administrative interfaces to SCADA systems, which are out there and easily searchable through Shodan that'll pop up. I think there's like the City of Dublin's SCADA system is, their web interface is exposed and was captured by Shodan. But all of these are available on the site now, and you can put out some pretty interesting things in terms of web interfaces out there that are vulnerable in one form or another that you could target.
We only have about 10 minutes left, so we're going to fly through the rest of these slides. The rest of these are just basically defensive tools that you can use to monitor if your site gets indexed by Google with one of those queries that's looking for vulnerabilities of sensitive data. And this one just sits as a systray app.
So if you were, as we mentioned last year, maybe getting a feed with 3,000 hits a day is not your thing. You don't want a feed of every vulnerability on the internet. You want it filtered in some way or form, specifically to what you're interested in. We have this Windows system tray application. You plug in your domains, what you want to monitor. It sits down there. It monitors the feed. If anything from the Fundle Bundle matches your organization, it alerts you, hey, there is a new alert out for you where Google's indexed a page, or Bing has indexed a page belonging to your company that matches one of these vulnerabilities that we're searching for.
Additionally, we now have an iPhone app. You can actually go right now, if you have an iPhone, go to the App Store, search iDiggity Alerts, and you can, from your pocket or anywhere you are, run.
You never have to leave your Diggity again. You can take it with you in your pocket, on your iPhone, and it'll buzz you, let you know, hey, there's some vulnerabilities out there that just got found. You need to go take a look at
Basically making this as convenient as possible. We just didn't like the fact that everyone had kind of given up on Google hacking. Talk to me after the talk if you want to know about the really interesting spreadsheet that it found on HP.com when I was beta testing it. And you can schedule reminders to run it and email the results to yourself. There's really no excuse not to know everything that that search engines and Shodan know about your site.
Yeah. And now that we've narrowed things down to just one single feed for it to check in terms of intensity on your phone and using resources up on your phone, it's next to nothing now because it only has to check one feed. Also, we have a few others in the work. We still have a Droid one that's on the way, as well as some early prototypes for Google desktop gadgets and things of that nature, which will allow you to filter these feeds based on domains that you're interested in and give you the results. Future directions. In doing all this research with this Fundle Bundle, as I am labeling it, I came across a way to, we've been putting all these feeds through Google Reader is how we've been doing it, and we've been exporting historically the Google Reader import file for you to download on our site. Well, this has been actually backing up and archiving, which is one of the beautiful things about it, every single feed that's ever been through it.
Yeah, for those of you that know the Googlebot FeedBurner, which basically archives and indexes any RSS entries forever.
Well, we found a way to extract every single alert that's ever gone through the Google hacking alerts and the Bing hacking alerts and download all of them to a single database. So now we have, well, before we claimed it was the world's largest repository of vulnerabilities, we actually have it all in one table now that we can regularly update with this feed.
This is just a SQLite table that would allow offline analysis of over the last year and a half. I think since April 2010 was when we created those alerts. Know what Google has indexed about every site that was captured with those queries.
There are close to 1 million vulnerability feeds, vulnerability entries that it's found. And right now we're taking this data, parsing it, and mining it for all sorts of interesting things. But we'll be making this data available to the public in several different formats so that the future is now, the future is this. You no longer have to go to Google or to Bing to find vulnerabilities about your company. You no longer have to deal with new APIs or search restrictions or new and creative ways. We will have every vulnerability on the internet that Google or Bing ever found in one database and already organized for you. You want email addresses out of it that it's found. You want vulnerabilities of different kinds. And we're going to have a dashboard type interface to kind of extract this data and look at it in all sorts of interesting ways. You don't have to search for it anymore. We already did that for you.
Yeah,
you'll be able to just tap right into the data.
It's kind of ironic because we're planning on, now that we've exported it all out of Google Reader, importing it back into Google's Fusion Tables API, which is now being used to sort through all the WikiLeaks, like crowdsource the WikiLeaks analysis and give feedback on that, and also the Google Chart API, which will really make it easy too.
And Google Sites, which is nice to provide a nice dashboard for you to search.
To make a nice visualization on all this data.
Yeah. Another thing that's in the works as well is once we do that and have all of these hooked up, not only have a central dashboard that you could search and pull metrics out of all of this data that these alerts have been collecting, but we'll also save it off as a site template that you can download to create your own Google site, plug in your domains, and have your own personalized Diggity dashboard of everything going on Google and Bing, presented to you in a neat format of every vulnerability that's been found since we started this and going forward about your company. So that's the immediate future. That's coming out next month.
Yeah, so if you have any interest in how to analyze that data, or if that's something that you'd be interested in talking more about, please come approach us after the talk or reach out to us through the website.
Yeah.
I'd like to real quick give a special thanks to some of the people that helped us find really good demos and helped us find, do some beta testing and gave feedback and helped write prototypes and a lot of the development for these efforts. We didn't do all of this by ourselves, so thanks to them. Does anyone have any questions?
Before questions for the people leaving, most of these tools that we mentioned are up on the website as of this morning. Those that aren't, most will be probably within the next 24 to 48 hours. And over the next week or two, you'll be seeing a lot of updates as well to the website for these downloads.
Yeah, dude, put it up.